This is what's referred to in Louisiana as a mirliton, also known as a chayote, chow chow, mango squash, vegetable pear, perlurero, pimpinella, pimpinola, Christophine, choco, tayota, and huisquil. Those were all pronounced correctly. There's no need to double check. The mirliton is not flashy. It's technically a gourd, though it looks more like a syphilitic pear. You can prepare it like a potato, though many say it more closely resembles a cucumber. You probably won't see it adorning the spring small plates menu at your local farm-to-table gastropub, though I'd imagine it'd go well with an off-dry Riesling. Sometimes they come covered in spines, like this, and I understand these are considered to have sweeter, firmer flesh, but I'll stick to the one that doesn't try to reciprocate laceration when you carve into it, thank you very much. This is your under-the-radar squash. We're here talking about it today because of its use in Cajun cooking, but as indicated by the long list of names the mirliton is known by, it exists all over the world, owing to the 15th century Columbian exchange in which Old World explorers stumbled across its native Mesoamerican homeland and, I assume, politely asked the locals if they could bring home a few bushels to Europe before calling it a day. Scientists aren't sure what happened next. What was first known as the chayote spread to the Caribbean, as well as colonial Europe's other occupied territories, ranging from India via Goa, Indonesia, the Philippines via Manila, and up to Vietnam, Thailand, China, Japan, and beyond. Eventually, sometime in the 19th century, the chayote landed in the American South, likely by way of immigrants from Haiti, where its name had long since been francofied into mirliton. If you're wishing there was a map or a graphic here, illustrating the process in a way that makes the information presented easier to synthesize, and wondering why I didn't take the time to put that together, well, it's because I don't know how to do that. And I'm pretty sure you can't just insert something from Google Images onto your video without someone getting mad at you. The point is, in virtually every formerly colonized region on Earth boasting something resembling a tropical or subtropical climate, the mirliton is there. And yet, its footprint in our admittedly Western-oriented culinary consciousness seems faint at best. Why is that? This is the first known photograph of the Louisiana mirliton, taken, fittingly, by surrealist photographer Clarence John Laughlin sometime in the 1930s. The fruit itself is clearly prominent in the foreground, yet it is the leaf behind it that casts a wide shadow over the rest of the composition, which is interesting. You'd think the actual fruit would be more or less the most important component of the photograph, with its short spikes and cerebral cortex-like surface. But for the Anglo-American residents of Louisiana in the 18th century, the mirliton wasn't known for its fruit, but rather its fast-growing, ivy-like leaves, primarily used for decorative purposes, with no regard for the edibility of the unsightly wrinkled berries that grew along with it. That changed, like so many other elements of life, with the creolization of southern Louisiana. We have little concrete evidence explaining how or exactly when this all happened, mostly due to the fact that mirlitons were eaten primarily by the underclass, whose habits people rarely dedicated their time to documenting, simply because the people doing the documenting were able to do so owing to their privileged status as members of the more leisurely upper class. It's not difficult to imagine similar scenarios taking place all over the world. The mirliton suffers from a crisis of identity. It is defined by that which exists independent of it. Rather than be embraced in a new land for its own sake, it is contrasted with the existing fruits and vegetables that have had a place carved out in their cultures for generations. Eat it raw or lightly seasoned with salt, and you may be told you're reminded of a cucumber or jicama. Cook it in a stew, as they do in the Portuguese islands of Madeira and the Azores, and it may invoke a potato. Stir-fry the mirliton and its shoots in the style of Southeast Asia, and you have a resolute stand-in for any type of gourd or squash. There exists a persistent rumor in Australia that McDonald's apple pies are actually made with mirlitons, or chocos, as they call them, down in that strange land where they just have to have their own funny little name for everything. The rumor arose from the legacy of the Great Depression, when mysterious ingredients became cheaper substitutes in mainstream staples. Unlike, say, the tomato, which was embraced with open arms in its adopted European home, allowed to be woven into the fabric of Spanish and Italian identity, the mirliton is a fruit that is regarded with suspicion. Perhaps for that reason, at each step in the mirliton's historical voyage away from its ancestral home, it became exponentially less like itself and more like something else. Over the course of its transcontinental journey through the colonial house of mirrors, it lost sight of which image was its reflection and which was its real self. Even now, I refer to it as a mirliton instead of chayote because I am speaking through the cultural lens of a very particular portion of the southern United States. It is an arbitrary decision I have made based on a narrow perspective of my own choosing, of which the plant itself has no bearing. Speaking taxonomically, its name is Sikios edule. Vaguely transmuted from ancient Greek in the sloppy style of all binomial nomenclature, it means simply edible cucumber. From the very beginning, we are assured that the alien fruit or vegetable, the choice is up to you, sitting in front of us is only as real as that with which we choose to compare it. All we truly know, or all we choose to understand from a scientific level, is that it is edible. And it's like a cucumber. But hey, why don't we cook something with it? This recipe for stuffed mirlitons is included in Marcel Bienvenu's book on Cajun cooking, Who's Your Mama? Are You Catholic? And Can You Make a Roux? A collection which, if you're new around here, has been a fixation of mine for the past month. To put this together, we start by cutting them in half lengthwise, then simmering them for 30 minutes or until tender. Once they've been removed and cooled down, we scoop out the insides while leaving the skin intact. The seeds get discarded, the pulp gets chopped up and reserved for stuffing. Once that's squared away, a half a stick of butter gets melted in a pan over medium heat, to which we add onions, garlic, and celery. Bienvenu omits the green peppers of the traditional Holy Trinity here, meaning we're cutting either the Father, the Son, or the Holy Spirit from our Gnostic roster. It's up to you to decide which one is which, but be aware that I'm not responsible for any hypostatic consequences. If an ecumenical council denounces you for heresy, don't come crying to me. I'm just a guy cooking on the internet. Once the vegetables are soft, add in some chopped shrimp, the mirliton pulp, along with some day-old bread that's been cubed up and rehydrated, and 1 egg. Season with salt and pepper and stir together, being careful not to overcook the shrimp since this eventually gets topped with buttered breadcrumbs and goes into the oven at 350 degrees for 20 or 25 minutes or until lightly browned. And Bienvenue fashion, I think she kind of under-seasoned here. Or I under-seasoned here at her direction. Whatever hair you want to split. You know, the mirliton, it's very inoffensive. I get why people say it doesn't really taste like much. I do frankly understand the cucumber thing. Hold on. Colors. When did this expire? Holy shit. I'm not even going to tell you when that expired. Alright. We're good. Well, oh, June. Right. Mirliton is not a Cajun staple because it has some intrinsic delicacy-like quality. It didn't find use in Bayou country because of its sweetness or mystic properties such as the ability to lure corpses back to life. No, Cajuns ate mirlitons because they were found growing out of the dirt around them. They were there, and people were hungry. I think that's an important lesson to internalize when considering the different food habits that exist across the globe. One thing isn't necessarily better than another thing. Sometimes you just gotta eat.